I'm Dr. Robbie Lloyd from the Justice and Peace Office, and we're honoured to have today our dear friends and colleagues, Jacqui Pasquale and Julie Rankin from Mildura, the creators of the Curious Grace model. Thanks so much for coming, guys, and we really appreciate your collegial approach and your friendship. Now we're trying to share that with new people, and so I just wondered if you could begin with a quick description of what is Curious Grace.
Curious Grace started out as a place, a cafe, an activity centre, where whoever came through the door would, if they wanted to, have a part to play in the activities that ran in that space. So whether it was a cafe or a mental health support group or a scrapbooking group or a radio station with young people, that was how it began. After that, it morphed into something more. Because it closed, because it stopped being a place with four walls, it then became a way of being. So Julie took her Curious Grace away, the young people took theirs away, and they, if you like, implemented their own version of Curious Grace wherever they went, a little bit like, a plant being seeded. So Curious Grace now is an interaction between two people. It's a place that two people create in the midst of lots of other things, perhaps even. Julie is a really good example of someone who, wherever she goes and in her work now, is a person who helps other people's hearts connect with her heart. And she had someone say to you today, and they actually were a person who was in the Mirrabinda mental health support group many years ago. And what did that person say to you today?
Yeah, what she actually said today, she said, when we have a session together, so I'm actually a community facilitator now, when we have a session together, my heart just feels so full afterwards, and she thanked me very much, and that was just wonderful to hear.
That's great to know. And so, because we're making this recording for people who know nothing, our next question is about how do the practicalities work so other people can imagine whether they're ready to come into this Curious Grace experience.
If you have a building and you have the ability to make, tea and coffee and toasties, and the power is paid for, the rates are paid for, it's a building that exists already, and it's in the middle of a community that might need some safe space like Curious Grace, then you're already, more than halfway there. But who has the keys to that space is often a contentious thing. And in our case, everyone who did work in that space had a key. And they could all go there when they had their activity. I might not be there all the time. Someone might be going there on a Tuesday night to do an open mic night, or a Wednesday night to do a youth group, and they would have a key. So I think that's one of the things that needs to be looked at most closely, because with that key comes a feeling of purpose and trust. And when those things are built into your model, you have a lot less problems down the road. With things like theft, or like we never had anything stolen, nothing ever was stolen.
I think from what you're saying, I really get that you value lived experience of people of all shapes and sizes. And once they know that they're valued and they have an identity and a purpose, then trust just magnifies. And so a lot of the problems that come when people don't feel that way, those problems disappear. So one of the things I imagine you were lucky with was that you had a bunch of volunteers who all had a value system, an ethos, a vibe, if you like, that was based on investing in lived experience and that everyone was equally valuable. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Julie?
Yes, we are all equally valuable, but prior to being in a space like Curious Grace, we don't feel it. Well, I know that I hadn't. And it's all about how I felt at the time, which I didn't believe in myself. And so in thinking that, I thought, well, how do other people perceive me? But but being able to access a place that I could go to and know that I felt safe and was non-judgmental, and I could just be me. I could just sit and read a magazine, or I could have a chat, whatever I felt at the time. And it's amazing how quickly your self-esteem changes from being in a space that is safe.
Yeah, I think that's really a critical factor that we so honour in what you achieved. And so whether someone has a mental health issue, a drug and alcohol, addictive behaviour issue, there's some sort of trauma, whether they're refugees or they're the victims, survivors of domestic and family violence, whatever the challenges are, we want to know that those people are very welcome, they're equally respected, and that those who are welcoming them come from the same mind and heart set. So part of that, I think, is preparing a new community with that awareness before they open the door. So thanks for that, Julie. And for both of you, I guess it's really important to get clear, how do you achieve valuing the lived experience of each person who walks in the door? And how do we make sure that the volunteers who come to support the project all come from that same understanding about equality and respect and celebration of people's difference?
So one of the things that will probably happen first is that people will be fearful of this idea, because they will wonder, well, what happens if someone who's angry or with a knife or who's drunk comes into our space? What do we do then? That's dangerous. And we're not ignoring that, but the space needs to be allowed for, and I guess the Wayside Chapel would be a good place to look at this sort of thing as well, for someone to come in and to be upset, to be distressed, and for someone to be able to meet them in that distress and move them into another place in that building so that they can have quiet space with one other human being or two other human beings, depending on the safety factors.
Yep.
And how that has been assessed. Because it's too easy to have one angry person upset, everyone else is doing really, really well. So we don't want that. But we don't want that angry or upset person to be alone either. So we bring them in. We don't push them away. We bring them in to the space. Maybe they end up going to hospital. Could be a number of things that occur there. But they're not rejected. And when they come back next time, they might not be in that same level of distress.
Same as all of us. We all have bad hair days. So the last point is just to go over again the essentials that brand new groups of people who are thinking of opening up a Curious Grace drop-in centre need to be aware of, about the premises, about the staffing, and about the resourcing of feeding and watering everybody. You want to say a little bit about that?
Yes. Of course, there are many people with lived experience will be volunteers, but it's also really important that you have a quorum, if you like, of people who aren't easily triggered, who aren't very sensitive, who are sort of like the rocks, if you like, so that they are able to maintain a calm space, even if there is some chaos potentially brewing. So, I mean, they could actually have a mental health issue themselves, but just be really, really well. Like the example of that, like most of the time I'm a rock. Occasionally I might be a fairy and float off. So it's important to have in the building at any one time enough people, I would say five was always a good number for us, who are able to just be able to respond to different people, even if they are, you know, our manager was usually really strong, but some of the people in the kitchen were often very sensitive and sometimes they'd argue with each other. So the manager had to be the person to go, hey, come on now. That's not what we're doing here. And also find out what was troubling them, but not in the middle of an actual lunch, a lunch session where they had to be keeping themselves together to serve. So, yeah, lots of people who are volunteers can have a lived experience of mental health issues, but you also need people who are either really well now or who have no history of mental health issues, but who understand because of their loved ones or because of their, their life in general, that people with a mental health issue are not the other, that they are us.
Yep. So part of it is what we call trauma-informed care. Part of it is the narrative therapy, helping people understand how their story fits into the wider stories of the world. And I think part of it is to know that everyone stays open alongside each other. But if someone's unwell, it's okay for them to have a bit of time out with a caring supporter. As far as the actual logistical parts go, you need premises, you need volunteer staff who've got a training and development level where they get all the stuff you've just described, and you need enough resources to be able to keep making the coffee and the toasties and be open again tomorrow and pay the power bill and all that.
Yeah.
So we really appreciate you giving us that summary, and we look forward to all of us providing support for new interested groups.
Yes. We're very excited to see what you'll have happening up there very shortly.
Excellent.